Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and these are the games being added to my collection for the month of October. As usual, this is the sister video to the Games Leaving the Collection series, which you can go ahead and check that out. This past month, 26 games left, although as usual, that video is divided up into the games that are more passing through, and the games that are actually leaving my collection. And this month, a lot of games are passing through, but from those 26 games, 22 of them were kind of just passing through, you know? I try it, I see if it's for me, and ultimately I choose not to keep them, although in many cases I do like them. You just have to make hard choices when you love a lot of games and you're trying to figure out which ones are actually going to see the table. But from those 26 games, 4 of them actually were leaving the collection. We got one big box one that was really hard on me, one that was a little medium, 2 smaller ones. The smaller one's going to be Fantasy Realms did leave. Ultimately, I have that and Marvel Remix, and while I enjoy both games, the more time goes on, the more I'm like, I don't need both, and I arguably think that Fantasy Realms is a slightly better game, but I find that Marvel Remix is a little bit more, I have a little more of a desire to actually table it, and it's a smaller box. Ultimately, Marvel Remix did win as far as the game I'm keeping, and Fantasy Realms left. Jambo left, which is a game that I've gotten rid of and gotten back a few times, but Jambo did leave again. Ultimately, I find, as much as I have some fond nostalgia for it, and I think it is a good game, there are other games that I tend to pull out first when I'm leaning towards a 2-player game, and Jambo just, I constantly get it back because I want to table it, but then I constantly don't pick it when it's time to play a game, so it's time to be real with myself once again on that one. In the medium category, we had Salton Sea, which left. Salton Sea is one that it's from Devere Games. That one kind of, it's a temporary window, but I played it. I definitely enjoyed it enough that I was like, I kind of want to table it more, but ultimately I think it is a slightly longer game, a little drier. There's some really clever things going on in Salton Sea. It is a very, very good game in my opinion, but it's one that I don't think is going to win out against other Euros that I prefer to table. And then the one that was really hard on me was the Big Box Lancaster. I have lots of fond memories for Lancaster. It's an excellent game. That and El Grande are two games that are older games that I discovered much later in my board game journey, and they are ones that definitely held up as far as older titles and how well those can do. Ultimately, Lancaster once again is losing out against other games that I think are better. El Grande is totally safe. El Grande is an absolute banger, but for me, Lancaster is one that the feel I get in the strategy of it feels very reminiscent of Rurik, and I much prefer Rurik over Lancaster. So as much as I think Lancaster is good, it is very, very good in a world and genre of great games, and I think nostalgia has held it here a little longer than it should have, but it did leave. And so we have 4 games that left the collection this past month, which brings us to the games that we're adding. As usual, I divide this up into the, I divide this into a bunch of categories, links and timestamps to everything down below. Let's go and start off with the cheating category, which is the kids collection. We have Avatar, Aang's Destiny over here. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang's Destiny. This is a version of Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. It's just that kind of style of gameplay, and I've overall been enjoying going through this with my kids. I like it, I enjoy it, I recommend it. I don't know if it'll be a keeper. We still have Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. I don't know if we need to keep both, but I'm going to let my kids make that choice and see what they want to do with it. For me, I don't count this in the games that I'm adding. I count this in the games they're adding. It goes into a separate little bundle. That way they're responsible for their own choices to a certain extent, although I'm still responsible for the shelf space and learning and table time and all that, but it counts as their game. In the special mention category, we have 2. These are games that are not technically being added, but I still think they deserve a special mention, and that's going to be the Ministry of Lost Things over here, which is an escape room game that I finished, so I don't think I can really say that I'm adding it, but I liked it. This is the kind of game I would add. It's just that this is a one-shot play, so it's not being added. But that's the Ministry of Lost Things. Again, special mention just in terms of if the goal of this series is to tell you the things that I enjoyed enough to add, this falls in that category. But ultimately, as a one-shot game, I don't need to add, so it doesn't really count. And then similarly to that, we have Draconis 8 from Wise Wizard Games. That was a solid game that I really enjoyed playing through. The only caveat is I think I enjoyed the app more than the tabletop version. So that is a game that I will play, but likely only on the app. I don't know if I'm going to bother having it as far as a physical version of it. It may change down the road, but for right now, I think it's just going to be an app game for me. So those are 2 special mentions. Again, games that are not actually being added. In the unsure category, we have 2 of these over here. These are games that they're not really being added because, well, I don't think either of these are being added, but I'm putting them in the unsure category just so you know that I still need more time with them, more plays. They're both prototypes, so I don't know how the final games will play out. For right now, I am on the fences and they could go either way, but I'm not counting them for right now because I don't think they're going to stay. And that's going to be Storfyfold, Wildwoods, and God's Heist. Storfyfold, Wildwoods, I need more time with it. The prototype doesn't give me a lot of ways to explore it. I think I enjoy it as a puzzle, but it's a puzzle that I think I'd go through and then move on from. I don't think it's one that I definitely feel the need to hold on to. Once the final game comes through, I'll decide if it actually is being added or not. We'll see. But for right now, I definitely enjoy it, but don't know if it needs to go into my collection. Similarly, we have God's Heist from Triton Noir. God's Heist is another one that I really like the gameplay of it. My concern is that I think it feels a little bit too samey, and you'll see this. There'll be a full review of it closer to the campaign, but I do think it feels a little bit too samey even when you're playing as different missions, and that holds it back for me. So I think it's one that I do want to explore through it and play through the full sequence and campaign, but I don't think that'll be that long, and I don't think it's one that I would hold on to for the replayability factor. So it's a hard decision or choice either way, but that's kind of where things are with God's Heist. As far as the games that are actually being added to my collection, we have 5. And again, caveats to everything. When I say a game is being added to my collection, the only thing I mean is that I enjoy it enough that I think it is a game that I will want to table again in the future, and not just want to table, because if wanting to table is a criteria, many more games would be added, but rather that I think I will prioritize. So when I'm looking at these games, I'm saying I think that I want to prioritize making sure this game gets played amongst the wealth of other games that there are. And in some cases, I actually do, and they stick around for years. And in other cases, 6 months go by, and I realize that I'm just not going to prioritize it over other games, and they might leave. That said, these are the 5 games that I do think will be here for some amount of time, and I'll clarify in each one of them. We're going to start with Agent Avenue. Agent Avenue from Nerd Lab is a small box game. There will be a review coming up of this. In general, I try to film these videos as time sensitive as they can be, but that means that reviews that get shifted around, like you might not see a review of this for who knows when, I don't know, but it's already ready to go and filmed. But Agent Avenue over here, this is a solid little 2-player game that ultimately comes to a kind of I cut, you choose kind of mechanic. You're basically going to be giving players a choice over here of 2 different cards, one face up, one face down, and they have to pick which one they think is going to be better for them based on what they see and the unknown of what you put down. There's a few little things to keep it interesting. I think it's a great small box 2-player game with a little bit of mind thing to it. So overall, definitely one that I enjoy and recommend, and I think it'll be around for a while. I find smaller box games have a lower threshold for me keeping them because there's less shelf space and they often play quicker. Ultimately, again, it comes down to, 8 months from now, am I looking at the shelf and ever considering pulling this out? And for right now, I still am, so that's Agent Avenue. We have Caper Europe, another 2-player game that goes into the lane battling kind of genre. I so far really enjoy Caper Europe. I think that it's an interesting puzzle as far as 2-player drafting and a lot to consider. And so for right now, again, I think that is one that is likely to stick around. I think it's the kind of thing that when I'm weighing up games like Airland and Sea, Caper Europe, all that, I think Caper Europe has a chance of being pulled out and played. It's not my favorite in the genre, but it's pretty solid and up there, and it's not so long for a game, so I'm pretty optimistic on Caper Europe currently. We have Creature Caravan from oh my gosh, from Red Raven Games. That one I really enjoy. I think Creature Caravan is an excellent game of building out a tableau of 12 cars as you go through it. You have 12 turns and 12 cars, and you're trying to figure out how to optimize. Very much a similar Everdell style vibe, where you're going to start off feeling incredibly constrained, and as the game goes on, you're going to be like, oh, how can I maximize the point return on these 12 cards? And you can't just dump cards whenever you get them, so you really have to think about what you play as you play it. The game plays in around an hour, which is a pretty decent amount of thinkiness for the table time that it gives you, and it gives you a lot of combos and ways to mix and match different things to try to optimize. It's a game that I don't think I've come close to seeing the full potential of it, but that's going to be Creature Caravan. Solid game, definitely recommend it. We have World Order. World Order over here, this is a game which, so the next two are going to be both prototypes, and they're technically ones that I can definitely change my mind on as I play them more. But I think right now, based on my plays of them currently, I think that I really enjoy both of these and really want both of these. But I do change my mind. My mind can change based on subsequent plays. Usually I find the biggest differential is if I play a game a second time and I'm like, you know what? That felt exactly the same to the way I first played it. Like, there's no way that I'm shifting or adjusting or approaching things differently. That will often kill a game for me. But assuming those things don't happen, which I don't think they will, I think these games are going to be both bangers for me, but we'll see. But starting off with the World Order over here, from the creators of Hegemony, I think this is excellent. It's going to be deck building and area control. The mechanics work well together. I think the game is going to be easier to teach than Hegemony. Probably about the same game length. It's not a short game by any means, but it leans more into things I like deck building and area control, while being much easier to teach. Like, I can get people up and running on this in like 10 minutes, which is a big problem for me at Hegemony, is that Hegemony always took like 45 minutes to an hour to teach it, at least for me. Granted, that's the kind of thing you can get down, but just the 4-player single-player asymmetric rules. I was never really fully smooth enough on it, and it's a hard game to table because of that. World Order, on the other hand, I think will be much easier to table, and I think it's an excellent, excellent game so far. Definitely feels like vibes of Hegemony to it, while being very, very different in its own right. And then lastly, we have Revenant from Mind Clash Games. Revenant is one that, again, you'll have a full review coming close to the campaign, but so far, based on my half a play of it, both World Order and Revenant, I have half a play. I played through like literally half a game. Like I played through 2 rounds of Revenant in a 4-round game, and 3 rounds of World Order in a 6-round game. Both were just teaching games to learn them in so far, so again, very much first impressions, but Revenant is definitely one that I am very excited for based on my half a game, and looking forward to properly tabling it and getting more developed thoughts out there as we get close to the campaign. But I think it is absolutely one that I'm going to want to add. Lots of good things happening so far. Anyways, those are the games being added to my collection. So we have 5 games being actually added. We had 1 to my kids' collection, 5 to mine, a few I'm certain about, Storfyfold and God's Heist, and then the special mentions of Draconis 8 and Ministry of Lost Things. That brings us to games for the month of October. That means we had 4 games that left in October, and we have 5 games that were being added, bringing us up to +1 game for the month once again, which puts us at a total of 16 games that have been added to my collection so far this year across the past 7 months. Meaning, again, once you count the games that are leaving, the games being added, my collection size is up by 16 over the past 7 months, which is manageable-ish, but again, the real problem is at the end of the day, if a collection is growing every single year, then something has to, like, there's optimism. My collection is driven by optimism. My game time, my collection, my collecting games of any kind, it's all driven by the optimism of what I actually want to table versus what I actually make time to table. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.